It is a legal Wednesday, and you just never know. Jeremy Rosenthal, attorney at law. Well, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning. So many topics out there to talk about, and I want to talk about the attorneys general from a number of states, Oregon being one of those, are suing over DOGE and their access to the government payment systems, which, of course, contains people's personal data. Now, a judge ruled on a temporary injunction telling them, okay, stop accessing it, and any information that you have, you need to delete it. But the question, I mean, let's start with that. What is the case built on? Or what law do they see as being violated? And we'll go from there.
Okay. Let's start by talking about what DOGE is and how they have sort of come to be. DOGE is a federal agency that was created via executive order. The president can do this. President JFK created USAID, which is also in the news. That's a big target of DOGE by executive order. So we know that that's a thing. We know that the president can do it like this. Now, when you're the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Education, you're created by statute. So you're going to have a little more teeth. You're going to have a little more ability to take more dynamic actions than just if you are, okay, I'm the president and I say you can go start doing X, Y, and Z, right? So you can go be an air traffic controller, things like that. Obviously, there's a little bit of it's got to be a touch more tempered. Now, what Elon Musk is doing and his team is doing is they're sort of showing up, sometimes announced, sometimes unannounced, and they're conducting audits. You remember Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, right? The opponents of Trump and Elon Musk have designated these guys tech bros. That's what they call them because apparently they're 22, 23, 24 years old. They have a big hair. They show up with their laptop and they plug in and they ride away on their skateboard. And then they do the government audit that way. The rub is that with some of these, it's one thing to go to NOAA, the National Oceanic and that's the weather people, right? Atmospheric people. It's one thing to go there and do your audit. It's another thing when you're going into the Treasury system and accessing the payment systems to every American. You're talking about bank account numbers, routing numbers, how we pay tax refunds electronically, how the IRS gets paid, how Social Security money is paid out. So the arguments against DOGE accessing this are twofold. Number one is we think you may abuse this, right? This gives you the practical ability to hit the switch and shut off these payments. Or number two, we think you're going to screw it up. We think you're going to be negligent with these things, and we think we could have a massive data leak just because you guys don't know what you're doing. That's the argument against accessing all of this information. My guess is that it's going to land somewhere in the middle, but that's sort of where we are with this.
All right. Well, I mean, okay, so if you're filing suit, it's not about thinking they may have abused the system. You have to be able to prove that. And you can't just file a suit based on, we think you're a bad person. They have to, you have to have a certain amount of evidence that you take in front of the judge and say, this looks screwy here because this, and this happened. Mm-hmm. A judge isn't just going to say, oh, just because you walked into my courtroom and you say, yeah, we think they're abusing it. Oh, well, okay.
You have to show, the standard is what's called irreparable harm. That's what you have to show if you're going to be asking for what's called injunction relief. Think you're going to make me miss my high school graduation because I wore a Led Zeppelin t-shirt. They wouldn't probably kick you out. But you know what I mean, right? There's cases where I'm going to wear, or I've done something and I'm going to miss the prom or high school graduation. there I'm irreparably harmed. I can never get my prom back, which by the way, I would never want that back for other personal reasons. In fact, I'd file a motion to make that memory go away. But you see my point. That's what irreparable harm would be. So what they're asking the judge is, look, judge, if they screw this up, they're going to screw it up bad. And so the judge in issuing this temporary order, it's temporary because I guess for no other reason than the judge is thinking, well, okay, let's hear this whole thing out before I let you dig in here, because all this data is going to be here in 6 months, right? All these problems that you're saying exist in this system are still going to be here in 6 months, and if you fix them in January or you fix them in April or May or whenever 6 months is, we'll be in the same place. So let's measure twice, cut once. I think that's the train of thought.
You think that's the way that they're going to deal with this?
I think so. I think this is going to land somewhere in the middle. I think they'll get some acts. I think they'll get some data, not all data.
Okay. I'm curious. I mean, and you started off kind of talking about what DOGE is. You know, I guess, what powers were given to DOGE by the president, and how much power can he actually give them? I mean, I think the idea of auditing every government agency is brilliant. And I don't know why they haven't done it years before. My question here is, can the president just give them that authority?
You do have, so there has been the ability to audit. It's just not been this expansive, and it's just not been this robust and well funded before. You've had inspector generals, and they can come in, and it's just a lot more limited. But to answer your question, and talking again about, let's talk about what an executive order is. Okay, an executive order is an order by the president of the United States to government personnel that says, here's how we're going to do this. Now, an executive order cannot violate the Constitution, and an executive order cannot override a statute that has been passed by Congress. So, a perfect example, whether you like DEI or don't like DEI, we're not going to do DEI, is a perfect example of an executive order that, look, that's a governmental policy. We're going to do it my way. And because I'm the president, we're going to do DEI, or we're not going to do DEI. That is a good example. So when you create a governmental agency by executive power alone, every other law out there is going to override you, every one of them. And the Constitution also is going to override it, which is why we had the one birthright citizenship issue. We've talked about that on the show before. That's why that one is running into some problems. So that's the scope of what they're doing. Now, when Congress steps in and says, okay, we're going to create a Department of Energy, and this Department of Energy shall have the ability to do this, shall have the ability to do that, shall get security clearances for this and that. It's going to have a little more teeth. So this department, so DOGE is. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a toothless tiger, but if you really want to get this thing right, you probably have some statutory parameters. You probably get the Senate to pass something, you get Congress to pass something. And again, I understand that that's not going to be tomorrow, but that's how you really give this thing a lot more bite.
One of our listeners sent in an email, and it says, so looking at read-only information, is it public domain?
It depends on what the information is. You have open records requirements that the government has to fulfill, but not necessarily, right? If DOGE is going into an area where they're hitting classified material, obviously that's not going to be able to be made public, really. So it depends on what it is that you're accessing. There's obviously privacy laws that are surrounding, right? Just because the Treasury Department, when you give the Treasury Department your routing number to either pay the IRS directly or to get your tax refund, that's not going to be public domain.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, Jeremy, we appreciate the chat this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Always, always take care. Go Ducks.
Go Ducks. Love it.
I like
we finally
it.
got a win last night in basketball. It took like 2 weeks.
Man, you guys have always been pretty good. But you know what? Like you said, it's in Big Ten territory. Eugene, Columbus, Newark, New Jersey. Weather's rough all over Big Ten country, from what I gather. Not the same snowstorm, though, I don't think.
Right. All right. Well, Jeremy, we'll talk to you hopefully next week.
You got it. We'll look forward to it. Bye.
All right, Jeremy Rosenthal on the wake-up call for our Legal Wednesday